It's important to be smart and safe when you're dating, but you don't want to be on that ultra guarded state, because then you're going to be misinterpreting some signals. It changes the way that you date. It changes how you read people and their intentions, their actions, their words. It also changes how quickly you tend to shut down. And when you shut down, what happens a lot of times is you're shutting out love. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Love Chat with the Love Twins. I'm Gladys Diaz. I'm so excited to be here with you today. If you are here, I always like to ask you to please say hi in the chat. If you're here live, if you're watching the replay, go ahead and write replay in the chat, because that just lets me know who's here, who's with me. Also keeps me looking at the comments to see if there is anything that you're asking me that you would like me to go over. All right, so as we jump into tonight's conversation, it is such an important topic because it's something that so many successful, self-aware, high-achieving women do without realizing it, without seeing it. And what happens is when something is in your blind spot, when you don't even know that you're doing something, it is virtually impossible to correct it, right? You cannot transform something that you're either unwilling or unable to see. So in tonight's conversation, what we're talking about is something that comes across or feels like it's wise, right? It looks like it's a wise choice. It sounds very mature. It sounds insightful, self-aware, and it's often praised as having standards, right? It's referred to as having standards. So what we're going to be talking about tonight, it can go unnoticed for a long time. And usually you don't realize it until you take the time to look at, okay, what are the results that I'm creating in my love life? So what we're talking about tonight is how your past disappointments are actually shaping your present standards without you seeing it. So let's be crystal clear from the beginning. I first want to start by saying this because this is really important. So if you're distracted, you're multitasking, just stop for a moment. The conversation we're having tonight is not about lowering your standards. This isn't about lowering your standards, watering them down, dimming down, settling for less than what you want, tolerating less than what you want or deserve. That's not the conversation we're having. It's also not a conversation about being more available to men who are inconsistent, or men who are unclear or emotionally unavailable, men who are misaligned, meaning they're not a match for your vision and your values. So now that we're clear that that's not what I mean at all, because it's important that you know that, because we're going to go deep, right? So this conversation is about something deeper. It's about looking honestly, taking an honest look at whether some of the things that you're now calling your standards, whether they're actually protections. They're protective devices, protective strategies that you've come up with. So why would these protections be in place? Well, protections are built after experiencing pain, right? Having your heart broken. They're built after experiencing disappointment. Protections are built after betrayals, right? Feeling like your trust has been broken. And protections built after giving your heart, like opening your heart, first of all, to someone, and then giving your heart to that someone, and then feeling like it cost you way too much. Like the price that you paid for being that open and that vulnerable was way too high. When that happens, whether you know it or not, you can start telling yourself that, well, you're just being discerning, or you're just following your intuition, when really part of you is trying to make sure that you never have to feel that pain again, right? So that's where the protection come in. Like there's a part of you that is saying, I just never want to feel that pain again. I don't want to feel or experience that betrayal again. And what happens is that it changes. It changes the way that you date. It changes how you read people and their intentions, their actions, their words. It also changes how quickly you tend to shut down. And when you shut down, what happens a lot of times is you're shutting out love, right? So it changes how safe love feels to you. And then consequently, it also changes the kind of love you even allow yourself to open up to and receive. So it creates a lot of what we call barriers, blocks and barriers between you and the love that you want to experience, no matter how much you want it. And again, not out of desperation, but simply because it's your heart's desire to share your life, to share your heart, to share the experience of loving and being loved with the right person. So tonight, I want to help you see this clearly, because when you can see it clearly, then and only then can you shift it. Clarity has to come first. And so let's start here, right? So after heartache, after disappointment, it's very natural to want to protect yourself. It's important to remember your brain, the primary function of the brain is to keep you safe and to keep you alive. Physically, it keeps all of the parts of your body going, right? The brain is like at the heart and center. Well, the brain is at the center of keeping your body, sending you signals when something is hot to move your hand, when something is dangerous to run away. Now, it's the brain also does that emotionally. So it tries to do the best that it can to keep you safe. So when you've had a heartache, when you've had a relationship that maybe you really thought that was the right relationship and it ends, the brain says you need to protect yourself. Or if you didn't see that somebody, let's say, was not who they said they were, then the brain says you have to be uber alert. And now it's important to be smart and safe when you're dating, but you don't want to be on that ultra guarded, hyper aware, hypersensitive state, because then you're going to be misinterpreting some signals, interpreting them as dangerous when maybe it's not. So think about it this way. If you gave your heart to someone who wasted your time, who you feel you gave months or years of your life to and it didn't work out, or you trusted someone who ended up letting you down, they betrayed you, they lied to you, something wasn't authentic about who they said they were, or you were with someone and you were giving your 100%, but that man was breadcrumbing you or not prioritizing you, or maybe he left you feeling rejected, right? Or left you when you most needed them, left you feeling confused. If any of those things happen, of course, part of you would want to become more careful, right? Because you simply don't want to experience that again. So part of you would say, never again, like never again. I'm not doing that again. I should have known better. I should have seen it. I should have picked up the signs. I need to make sure that that never happens to me again. Now, that is the heartache. But if you associate love, opening your heart, connecting with someone with heartache, guess what you're blocking yourself against? You're protecting yourself against the actual love that you want. So the protection part is human. Here's where it gets tricky. Sometimes the pain that you experience due to heartache, it gets translated in your brain into, now I'm going to set some standards, but they're not really standards and they're not rooted in clarity. They're a set of rules or a set of cautions, right? If you've ever gone to a pool and it's got like this list of cautions, swim at your own risk, all of that, those types of things are rooted in fear. It's not really standards. I'm going to tell you what standards are, but this ultra hyper protective state is not about clarity and it's not about standards. It's about fear. So they're rooted in fear. They're rooted in control, trying to control outcomes, trying to control what somebody else says or does or what you say or do. And so you're like in this state of wanting to control and manage and sometimes force or prevent what's happening. You're not present. So they're rooted in this protection, not clarity. And then you can sound smart, or actually because they sound so smart, like never again, not put myself in danger's way, not open myself up to heartache. It sounds smart. And so you might not question them. So you might say, you know what, right now, I just have very high standards right now. But the deeper truth might be, I don't want to risk feeling that powerless ever again, or that hurt, or that vulnerable. You might say, well, you know what, I'm just moving a lot slower now. But underneath that, right, if you're saying that that's a standard, it could be, I don't want to be vulnerable enough to be disappointed again. Or you might say, I'm more discerning. I'm being more discerning than I used to be. But if we get honest, right, sometimes what's really under that is I'm scanning. I'm constantly scanning for what could go wrong before I let anything or anyone in. So you're in that, scanning for what's wrong, scanning for what could be a potential danger or a red flag is how a lot of women refer to it. And then you're only looking for that, which means that's probably what you're attracting. So again, I am not saying that discernment or following your intuition is wrong. Discernment is absolutely necessary. But discernment and defensiveness are two completely different things. They're not the same thing. So let me give you some examples. Discernment is, I see clearly, I trust myself, I can honor what's true for me. That's discernment. Defensiveness, or being on guard, defensiveness is, I need to stay in control so I don't get hurt. Can you see that there's a very different energy between I see clearly, I trust myself, and I need to stay in control so I don't get hurt? It's just not only is it a different energy, it's a very different intention. One of them is grounded. It's grounded in yourself and your value and self-trust. The other one is guarded. So you don't want to be guarded, you want to be grounded. Having standards is about being, we call it, like having your eyes open, we call it being awake and aware. being in that protection mode is about being alert and on guard. You're bracing yourself for the disappointment. You're bracing yourself for the thing that's going to go wrong, the thing he's going to say wrong, the thing he's going to do wrong. When you're in the grounded state, you can receive love. You can evaluate what's happening very honestly. You can see it for what it is. When you're in that guarded, alert, and on guard state, you're already preparing for disappointment before anything has even happened. So it's going to give you a different experience of dating if you're in a constant, like you're think about your body bracing, like you're like bracing for impact, right? Versus being open and alert and aware, but not on guard. Okay. So what I want you to begin asking yourself now is, are what I've been relating to as my standards, are they helping me to choose love well, or are they helping me to avoid emotional risk? Because again, the energy, the intention behind each of those two things is very, very different. Are they helping me to choose love well, or are they helping me to avoid emotional risk? There's just if you even ask yourself that question right now, you'll feel the difference in your body. Like you can feel the difference in your body when I'm choosing well versus I've got to be in control. Okay. So that question really matters, because a lot of women who are struggling when it comes to love, especially high achieving women, they're not struggling because their standards are too high. Right? Maybe you've gotten feedback, oh, you're too picky. Well, if you're looking for perfection, I'm going to tell you yes, right? But it's not that your standards are too high. That's not what's happening. The women are struggling because what they're relating to as standards are actually being built inside of survival, trying to survive, trying to not get hurt, trying to prevent. So there's a completely different, like I said, energy and intention. So survival doesn't build intimacy. Survival is built for protection, not for intimacy. This is why it's so important to be able to tell the difference between the two. So let's take this even a little deeper. Your past pain doesn't only influence who you choose. It's not just influencing that, it's also influencing how you show up. Because remember I said, if you look at the two different intentions between being self-trusting, awake and aware, open, versus being alert and on guard, braced, it's going to show up. It's going to impact how you show up. It has to, right? Even if you're trying to pretend that you're not being one and you're being the other, or if you're pretending, then there's a whole ton of energy going to that too. So this is where a lot of women miss what's not working. They think, nope, I've already learned my lesson. I've learned my lesson. I'm choosing differently now. Okay, maybe that's true. But are you also showing up differently? Are you showing up in a way that's shaped by the old hurt, right? Shaped by the pain, right? Because disappointment, it has residue. It leaves a residue, an emotion. We call it the emotional residue. And if that residue hasn't been completely cleared, then it can keep showing up in very subtle ways. So I want to give you some examples of how it can show up by being more guarded on first dates. So you're there physically on the date, but emotionally, you're barely available. Like it's very difficult for the person to connect with you authentically, or you're constantly assessing everything that's being said, everything that's not being said, everything that's being done. So you're in this like assessment mode versus presence. You're watching. Maybe you're holding back. I'm not gonna open my heart. I'm not gonna share too much because I don't want to get hurt. Now I'm not saying that on the first date, second date, third date, you share everything that's ever happened to you in your entire life. There are things you do want to wait to get to know someone well enough to know that you can trust them with certain information. But if you're holding back, whether the person, the guy on the other side of the table, or let's just say you're having coffee or dinner together, he may not be able to say, oh, she's holding back. How it comes across is she's not being real. Like there's some, like I can't put my finger on it, but I don't feel connected to her. So again, it's not about going to one extreme or the other. It's about not allowing that emotional residue to keep you guarding yourself. And if you're in that constant assessment mode, you're going to find I promise you, if you pay attention next time that you're on a date, if this is something that happens to you, you're going to feel it in your breathing. Your breathing is probably going to be more shallow. You're going to feel more tense versus relaxed. Even if you're smiling and even if you're putting on a brave front, there's going to be something that you're going to feel that just doesn't feel like you being you. So when that happens, the other person is just not even getting a real picture of who you are. Another way that it can show up is by over giving, over functioning, over performing in relationships. So what does that look like? You become super self-reliant, meaning that, and again, most of us are very self-sufficient, very capable women. I'm not talking about being a damsel in distress. Like, I can't even go there myself, right? But when you're solely self-sufficient, meaning you don't allow people to contribute to you, you don't allow a man to like just provide for you. And I'm not talking just financially, like just play a role, some role in your life, then it's sending the message, stay away. Even if your mouth isn't saying it, energetically, that's what's happening. So you're being, like I said, emotionally contained. Maybe you're being less expressive. So if you're a very expressive person and you're like, nope, not going there, not getting hurt again, maybe you're coming across without knowing it as flatlined. Like there's very little energy coming, so it's going to make the other person feel like either you're not interested in them, or this is just like it's too hard to like even get a sense of who she really is. You're less willing to ask for help, you're less willing to receive, and you're less willing to reveal what really matters to you, because you're in that guarded phase. And it might feel like you're being very empowered, but that's not what empowerment is. Somewhere along the line, you told yourself that it was safer to not want or need or share too much to avoid getting hurt. And that, again, can show up as being quicker to interpret your own uncertainty as, oh, that person is not a match. We're misaligned. So if you find that you're like, not a match, not a match, not a match, a lot, and it's because of the experience that you're having, maybe they're not even turning out to be dates. Maybe it's even in the chatting on the app or on text and the phone calls, and you're like, nope, 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 consistently. It's something to look at, because not everybody, to be honest, right? Not everybody's going to be a match, but that also doesn't mean that nobody is going to be a match, right? So you got to be willing to look at that. Another way that this can show up is, I want you to think of your nervous system as a clerk, a file clerk, like a secretary, and it starts pulling up all these old files, right? To warn you, like, oh, he took a few hours to text me back. Oh, he seems a little bit off. Oh, he seems too excited, too excited to meet me. It's coming across as needy. Oh, he said something imperfectly. Oh, and I don't like this, like little things. So you're looking for the things that, oh, not a match, not a match, right? Maybe he's moving in a way that reminds you of somebody from your past, especially if it was somebody who hurt you. If you haven't healed that, it's going to set off a trigger. Or maybe he's moving a little bit more slowly than you like you want him to be calling you more often and asking you out more often, and you're not allowing things to flow naturally. All of these things could be happening when you're inside of this protective versus present state, okay, where you're being guarded versus open, and still being awake, aware, fully present, so you can use the information that you're getting, but you're not jumping to conclusions. So what happens is, when you're in that state, is that before the present moment even has a chance to reveal itself, like what's actually happening, what's actually flowing, the past, right? We're talking about the body, your nervous system being a file clerk. The past has already filled in the meaning. It's filled in the blank. It's bringing the files, the old programming, the old beliefs, the old memories into the present and saying that's what it is, because it's something that hasn't been, like, you're dealing with the present from the past, which is why it could be feeling like your past keeps repeating itself. And this is what happens when the present moment is being filtered through the past disappointments. It's just you're looking for it, you're preparing for it, and guess what? Inevitably, you're going to find it. And then you get to be right about something you absolutely don't want to be right about, which is love is hard, men aren't honest, men don't really want relationships. You get validation, evidence, and validation for the things that you don't want to be true, but you're believing are true based on the past, right? So you're not even responding to what's actually happening right now. You're responding to what happened then, because what's happening now is reminding you of something that happened in your past. So this is why so many of the women that we talk to say, I don't understand, I'm doing the work. I've done my inner work. I've been healing. I feel like I know better now. And why is it that dating still feels so darn hard? Why is it, if you're in a relationship, that relationships still feel like hard or struggle? And that's because knowing better isn't the same as being emotionally free, as actually being free from the past and not allowing your past decisions, your past pain, your past relationships, your past disappointments to be choosing for you here and now in the present. right? And it's not a character flaw. I don't want you to think that that you're doing anything wrong or that there's something wrong with you. There isn't anything wrong with you. It's just that it doesn't work to have the past choosing, seeing, hearing, listening, interpreting for you, because it's only going to keep giving you past results, right? So it's very human, right? And it's simply because the unresolved past, the unresolved pain, the heartache, it doesn't just disappear because you have better insight, because you know better, because you've done some of the work. You can understand your pattern intellectually 100% and still have your body and your nervous system bracing for that old outcome, like the same outcome from the past. You can know that you deserve a healthy, loving relationship and still tense up when it starts to get real, when it starts to look like that might actually happen. You can say, I want partnership. I really do want someone who's a true partner, and still be moving through dating in a way that says, I got to stay in control. I can't share too much of my heart. I can't really trust until I have proof beyond proof beyond proof that I can trust this person. Now, dating you becomes like a test or a challenge that somebody has to pass in order to. The reason I hesitated was I started thinking of the knights when they had to have like the duels. Like, it becomes like this test that somebody has to prove themselves. And I'm not saying that you're not going to take your time to get to know someone to make sure that you're choosing the right person, but if it feels hard for you, I promise it also feels hard for the other person. So again, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not that love isn't in the cards for you, that you weren't meant to have love. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that there's still something that gets to be worked through and completed, so that it doesn't keep coming back, so that you can move forward with clarity, with real empowerment, with confidence, knowing that who you're choosing to be your partner is the right person for you. Okay. If you're listening to anything of what I said and you can hear yourself in this conversation, if you're realizing like, wow, I just thought I was being like discerning, and maybe I really have been protecting myself in ways that I haven't fully seen, then I'd like to invite you to book a love discovery call with one of our love breakthrough coaches, because sometimes it's almost impossible to see your own pattern. It's very difficult to see it from inside of it. Sometimes what feels natural or normal to you, what feels wise or discerning, and it feels like, well, this is just who I am, right? It's actually a survival strategy. And it's a survival strategy that was built after experiencing heartache. And on a love discovery call, what we do is we help you look at, okay, what's really been shaping your love life until now? What's really been making the calls, making the choices? What could be keeping love at a distance? What might be in the way? And then what would it look like to move forward from a more grounded, self-trusting place? So if this conversation is hitting home for you and you've never had a love discovery call with one of our coaches, I invite you to book that call now. Right, we're dropping the link in the chat now, so you can go ahead and click it. Not later, not someday, not once I finish whatever it is I'm doing. Do it while it's still fresh, while the conversation is still fresh, and do it while you can still feel what this conversation is showing you, what is revealing for you, because awareness is powerful, but supported action is what actually changes things. It's what transforms your current experience, and that's what we want for you. We want you to transform what's been happening into what you want, to have that kind of loving relationship that flows, that's easy, that you don't have to be bracing yourself for the next disappointment. You're actually happily and hopefully anticipating the next wonderful thing that's going to happen. Okay. So if what you've been referring to as standards, you're starting to see now that it's really about protection, then what are real standards? Like, what are real standards? So real standards, first of all, are not punishment for you or the man. Like, it's not a consequence. It's not a punishment. Like, if you don't meet the standard, then you're out, right? Real standards are not walls. They're not tests, like I said before, and they're not rules for somebody else to follow. They're also not a way to make sure that people don't get close enough so that you're not disappointed. It's really not that. So if that's what you've been experiencing, just take a deep breath. Let's just take a deep breath together, so you can open up your heart, your mind, to really receive what are real standards. That when I say real standards, like healthy standards, real standards are rooted in self-trust. So they come, first of all, from knowing who you really are. You are not your past choices or mistakes or heartaches. That's not who you are. There's a woman that you are. So knowing who you are, knowing the kind of relationship that you truly desire. Real standards are rooted in knowing the kind of love you're available for now, what you really would like to attract and call into your life right now. They're rooted in knowing what what are your values, and why are those values important to you? Why is that a value? So that you can attract someone who aligns with your values, with your vision, with your peace, with your heart, with your future, with you, the real you. When you get clear on who you are, the kind of love that you really want, and what you most value and why that's important to you, you will attract a person who is a match for that, for you, your vision, your values, the real love that you want. So real standards, they don't feel strict and constricted. They feel clear. They're not rules, like I said, that a man has to follow. They're not hyper defensive or hyper protective. They're not about overdoing or overperforming. And they're not rigid in like a survival based way. They're grounded. They make you feel safe and free, not protected and on guard. Okay, so here's what they could sound like. I always like to give you the non-example and then give you the example. So a standard would be, I want emotional consistency in a relationship. I want honesty in a relationship. I want there to be open communication, even if it's a tough conversation. I want a relationship where both of us are putting in mutual love, mutual effort to make the relationship work. I know I want a relationship where I don't have to abandon myself or pretend I'm someone who I'm not. I want a partnership, a real partnership. I want love that matches the life that I'm building. Those are standards. You can hear how they're desires. There's nothing that says what the other person has to do. That's a rule. That's an expectation. It's all about what I want, what's important to me, what I value. So that's very different from, I will never let someone get close enough to me to hurt me again. He has to show up exactly the way I want him to show up immediately, or I'm out. Or I'm going to assume the worst until I'm proven otherwise. Oh, assume the worst, expect the worst. Guess what you're going to get over and over again. Or this is also not a standard. I have to stay one step ahead emotionally to make sure that, nothing catches me off guard. Can you hear, like, there's just such a different energy from when I was saying, I want real partnership, I want open communication. There is a different, and that's what I mean by the energy, right? It's also not, he has to meet this, and this criteria, or he's out. He doesn't even stand a chance. That's all about the other person. It's all about protection. It's all about, creating this wall around you. So the first set of examples, I want real partnership, I want honesty, I want emotional consistency. That's a standard. I'll never let someone get close enough to me to hurt me. He has to meet this criteria or he's out. I'm not going to allow myself to get that close or I'll get hurt. That's armor. So one is a standard, the other one is armor, protection. And while the armor can give a sense, like a feeling of being powerful for a little while, here's the thing, armor does not create intimacy. Armor does not create intimacy. Armor is created to keep things out. If you think about the knight that I was talking about before in the duels, the whole reason they're wearing armor is to not die, right? They've got the suit of armor, and then underneath they've got the chain link. It is to keep things out. So rules, expectations, criteria, armor that keeps real love, intimacy, and connection out. Armor doesn't create partnership. It doesn't create the kind of love where you feel deeply met, seen, heard, understood, accepted. You don't feel where you feel emotionally safe, right? That's not going to be created with armor. So at some point, if you want a real relationship and not just the idea of a relationship, the protection has to be looked at. Not shamed, not judged, not now going to force it away. You want to see it, you want to address it. Because when you can see what disappointment has built inside of you, then you can begin separating the wisdom from the wound. Then you can stand in wisdom and not have the wound be what's choosing for you. And that's where everything changes. Everything completely transformed. You get to keep the wisdom and release the wound. You get to keep the clarity and release the bracing, the guarding. You get to keep the standard and release the fear that's been hiding inside of it, pretending it's a standard, right? That's what then opens up the space and makes room for real aligned love. Aligned meaning that it's aligned with you, your vision, your values, what you really want, and what you want to experience in a relationship. So as I wrap up tonight, I want to leave you with this. Your standards are important. Get clear on what real standards are so that you can stand there, right? You can stand inside of your standards. We believe in standards. We believe in discernment, in having your values guide you. That's what we believe in. We believe in choosing a man who really is aligned with your values, your vision, the kind of relationship that you want to experience and be in every day for the rest of your life. And we also know that when past disappointment has been quietly shaping what you've been relating to as standards without you knowing it, without you seeing it, then love can begin from a place of guardedness and protection versus openness, which is what's really going to call in what you want versus keeping out what you don't want, right? And when that happens, when you create that shift, while you may think that being protective, like being protective and on guard, is protecting your heart, it's really important that you hear me when I say you're also making it harder for the right relationship to find you, to make its way to you, and so that you can be having that experience that you really want. So tonight, I'm going to leave you with a question to sit with, and you can put your answers in the chat. What in my love life is true discernment? And what might still be protection? This is going to take like not being distracted, because it's really introspective, like going within, like, what in my love life is true discernment, that I'm using discernment to make my choices, and what might still be protection coming from wanting to protect myself. That question alone, it can open up so much, right? And if you know that this conversation is about you, if you know that you're tired of repeating patterns that either you can't quite name the pattern, whether you can name it or not, you're seeing it repeat itself and you can't really put your finger on why is it that this keeps showing up? Why does this keep happening to me when it comes to love? Then please go ahead and book that love discovery call with one of our love breakthrough coaches. Let us support you in being able to see. Sometimes we can help you see something that's completely in a blind spot for you, so that we can help you, we can support you in seeing what's been driving those patterns, what emotional residue might still be there, driving, taking the wheel of your love life versus your heart and your desires and your vision being what's driving you, right? And what does it look like to date and be in a relationship from a place of self-trust, of clarity, of openness, and real empowerment? That's what the purpose of the love discovery session is. So we're dropping the link in the chat and really invite you to do that. And like I said, do it now. Do it now while this conversation is still fresh. You'll be able to write, when you click on that to schedule time, you'll be able to write what it is that most resonated with you, like the number one thing that you want to talk about. And so you want it to be fresh in your mind. And remember that this isn't about becoming less discerning. It isn't about like becoming blind, sticking your head in the sand. We would never, never, ever recommend that you do that, because that's not wise, right? And it's not safe. This is about becoming more open, more clear, more aligned, more available to the kind of love you actually want. Okay, so when you take that moment, to me, it's just self-love. It's just self-love to say, you know what? Have I been standing in protection, or have I been standing inside of my standards? And you can get the clarity around that, then you really do open up not just like your dating pool, but your heart, your life, to receive the love that's waiting there for you, right? You actually get to welcome in the love that you actually want, the one that's easy and flowing, a match for everything that you desire, and then that you feel emotionally safe, held, seen, loved inside of the right relationship with the man who's right for you. Okay, so that is our heart's desire for you, and I just want to thank you for being here with me tonight. I know it can be a confronting conversation, but here's the thing: if you know it's coming from a place of love, and you know it's coming from the desire for you to be in the loving, happy, committed relationship that you want and deserve, then have that give you the courage to schedule the call, to have a conversation. I had a beautiful conversation today with a woman I've never spoken to or met before, and it was just so beautiful to be able to help her to see something she couldn't see on her own, and to hear like the tone at the beginning of the call, to the hope and the freedom and joy that was there at the end of the call. It's just everything. So give yourself that gift if you've never had a love discovery session, and let us just be that those eyes and those ears that can see what maybe you haven't been able to see or hear until now. All right. So thank you so much for being here with me tonight, for sharing this time with me. We'll see you on the next Love Chat with the Love Twins. And until our hearts meet again, always remember that you are loved. Goodbye for now.